Hello everybody, this is Timothy Malcolm of 845 Scene and the Times Herald-Record. We're here today going to talk about the 2011 Bethel Woods Pavilion schedule, which is now just about a formality. It's just about finished, and we have the big go cover this week talking about the schedule. And with me to talk about it are two men who kind of know Bethel Woods in and out. They've been to a lot of shows, they know it well. To my right I have Barry Lewis, the Sullivan County editor, Sunday editor of the Times Herald-Record, who has been covering Bethel Woods since it was planned. And to my left I have Steve Israel, who has been also covering Bethel Woods for a long time, well-known reporter in this area. And I guess to start, if we were going to do this Tuesday morning, we would have not said something like this, but now that Tuesday has passed, the big news, Elton John is playing Bethel Woods this year, September 3rd. I'll start with you, Barry. What's your reaction, your spit-take reaction to this?
Tim, if we were doing this Tuesday morning, we would have been talking about Janet Jackson as the big name possibly coming up this year, or at least the name that nobody figured on that was going to draw the big attention.
Yeah.
You know, Selena Gomez is the sellout. There'll be some nice turnout with the Philharmonic and the Boston Pops. But Elton John, I think possibly next to Sting in terms of, you know, a universal name that will draw for all genres, without question, the biggest name that Bethel Woods has ever had. You know, you have the 40th anniversary Woodstock show. You have opening night when the New York Philharmonic, the very first show. This one will rate right up there. Tremendous coup for Bethel Woods.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's a big coup. This is, you know, Janet Jackson, Sting. This is a whole other level. This puts them now in a position, to me, where you can now see them maybe going after Springsteen, maybe going after Madonna, someone of that ilk, because now they've broken that ground. They're now at that level.
Right, and the expectation. Each year they've added more shows.
Yeah.
They've extended the season, where the very first year was the very beginning of July through the second week of August.
Yeah.
They've then almost doubling each year. Now we're looking at a place that is having nearly 30 shows, starting between the events gallery and the pavilion, starting in May, running through into November. This year you have Pure Prairie League going into November. So it's a wide range, and like you said, now it's the big time.
Yeah.
It's Jones Beach, it's SPAC, it's Tanglewood, it's Bethel Woods, it's right up there. They can sell out, and they can now also, working with Live Nation, which is the key part of it, is they can show that they could command the ticket prices, which is, I think, is what they showed with Sting last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how much would people in this area be willing to pay? Over $150?
Yeah.
Yes.
Steve, do you agree with that now Bethel is on that level of those other venues?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I actually think that Bethel Woods as a venue is nicer than any of those places. I've talked to musicians. I've talked to, you know, Larry Campbell, who plays with Levon, who played with Dylan, who lives in Ulster County. Talked to Levon. They love it. And I tell everybody it's as nice a place in the world. I mean, my God, Barry and I were there. We remember them putting in the pavers, you know, like 3 days before.
Asking them how far do you have to go,
Yeah,
and the guy said they would just told us just keep putting down the pavements. That's as far.
But it's, you know, in terms of sound, in terms of all the things that go into a first-class place. State Senator John Bonasek, of all people, said to me once, it's the best place in the world. There's no other place like it in the world. And I was kind of like, yeah, another politician, you know, shooting off his mouth. But I'd be hard-pressed to find another place, really, as classy, as quality, just in terms of everything. The artist experience, the audience experience.
And the reverence that you've seen it, because we've seen the show, the reverence that the acts have for the place is tremendous. David Crosby, first year, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, without question, one of the top rock bands in history, played at the original Woodstock, and he says, we're scared to be up here. And every artist who's played there say, we know what it means to play here.
Hey, I thought the mark of how significant it is to have a performing arts center there is when Dylan, my baby boom hero, who doesn't say a word to the audience, and if he does, you can't understand what he's saying, actually mumbled something towards the end of his show that I think it was the first year he was there that didn't make much sense about, the last time I was here, and of course he wasn't there, but even he acknowledged this.
He thought he was there.
Well, even he acknowledged the significance of the place.
That brings me to Fish, who's opening the Bethel Woods season on Memorial Day weekend with 3 shows. They're opening their tour with that set of shows. They kind of have that whole 1960s jam band, Grateful Dead kind of thing going on, and they kind of seem to be a perfect fit for that place. So Matt McNeil of Bethel Woods was talking to me on the phone about this. He said that Fish had this on their radar. This was a place that they knew they had to play. Their management was very high on the place. That this is the perfect place for you, especially on a weekend like this. Do you think that Bethel Woods then becomes a place for those kinds of bands, the Fishes, the Dave Matthews, all those kinds of bands, to be their home base almost?
Yeah, the one thing, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. And I've talked to Matt about the same thing. There's a certain tradition, call it the Woodstock tradition. Singer-songwriters, jam bands, Dylan, who didn't play Woodstock, but his whole legacy, the Dead, who did play Woodstock, their whole legacy, which
and
is Fish.
Further is playing.
And Further, Phil Lesh is one of the best shows I've seen there. I think that is Bethel Woods' special niche, and it's a tradition that continues to this day. And as a matter of fact, if there was one thing I'd like to see, I'm not crazy about some of the bands that are going to be there this summer, but everybody has their own taste. But if there's one thing that I would like to see is Bethel Woods to pursue and to really carve out that niche for itself. It's something that Tanglewood has with James Taylor every year. I think that Bethel Woods, James Taylor would be great there. Yeah. And they do it. And I don't know exactly how you could have, how you could say in the Woodstock tradition, but I'd really like to see those kinds of acts who fit that legacy have more of a prominence there. My own taste, I could care less about Selena Gomez.
But that I think in some ways is becoming the Bethel Woods niche. It is a season where it's a little bit of everything for everyone. They will have the Pops and the Philharmonic. They will have Brad Paisley, Big and Rich. You had.
Well, this year it's Tim McGraw.
Right, Tim McGraw. So you have the top names in country.
Yeah.
And then you have OAR. You
311
have
this year.
Right. All those. Dave Matthews. You have that. Then you throw in Tony Bennett, Sting. You throw in. Where you're talking
and
now.
Neil Cicada. He's playing this year.
John Cicada. So you're having all these different groups
Neil
playing.
Sedaka,
Neil Sedaka. So you have Neil Sedaka.
This is the age.
So you have
Sedaka.
So you have Sedaka. So what you have is whatever you like. If you want to have those, they'll have the 60s reunion every year. They'll do the doo-wop shows. I think their niche is that the season will offer something for everyone at a reasonable price range throughout the course of the year, and which they're now extending. And unlike, let's say, a Tanglewood or others, where maybe the feeling is they won't play that type of place, at Bethel Woods, everybody will play there. And if you get a season pass or you're interested in maybe even the launch seat for the year, sure enough, you're going to have 2 or 3 groups that you're going to like. That's the niche.
See, I'd like to, it's great. How can you begrudge, the lineup. I mean, having the New York Philharmonic followed by the doo-wop extravaganza followed by Tim McGraw, preceded by Hall & Oates.
Goo Goo Dolls and the Janet Jackson,
Right.
Selena Gomez.
But-
All three could sell out.
Maybe this is wishful thinking. We wrote a million times before Bethel Woods opened, will the New York Philharmonic be their resident orchestra? How great would that be?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see, that's what I would like. Maybe it's selfish, I'd like to see them just take it a step further. The venue itself is nicer than Saratoga, it's nicer than Tanglewood, it's way nicer than Jones Beach. I'd like to see them take the music, take what they're presenting, and really kind of have the entertainment equal the venue.
The problem is, also, and you've seen it, last year, I think they had probably one of the lowest turnouts for the Boston
Right,
Pops.
right.
And the Philharmonic, which surprises folks. In your backyard, you have the Philharmonic and the Boston Pops, and not only are people walking out in the middle of the show, and these are quality shows. It's not as though you're getting the second tier of either one. This is top-notch. They bring in great singers to perform with them. It's music that everyone can appreciate. They play standards, show tunes, very patriotic themes, Gershwin, and yet they're not drawing the crowds on those. They're not filling the pavilion.
I think a lot of that goes beyond Bethel Woods. I think it goes
Right.
into more of the current appreciation for chamber music and for symphonic music. It's not as high as it used to be, and that audience is starting to dwindle. So you're seeing that problem. But you do have the Selena Gomez, you do have the Janet Jackson.
Jonas Brothers will
You
be
do
the
those
biggest
things
band
to
there.
sell out, to kind of make up for
It's
those
also
other
who's
kinds
on
of shows.
tour.
Right.
Now, I want to
And
ask.
that's the big key is who's on tour.
Yeah.
This place is coming alive, and it's coming into prominence during an incredible recession, and at a time where we're not seeing a lot of the big names no longer touring.
Yeah.
And so, Bethel Woods is making a name and a niche for itself at the toughest possible time to be doing this without a history.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask as a final question, because this goes back to what Bethel Woods does really well, and that's the history and the idea of the 1960s, bringing that back and kind of keeping that going. This year they brought back the Bethel Woods art, the Festival of the Arts,
Yep.
or the
That August
Woodstock weekend,
right, August 14th,
Music and
15th,
Arts
16th,
Festival.
right.
They have this year members of Blood, Sweat and Tears and members of the Family Stone. No Sly, members of the Family Stone. We kind of laughed. We were like, where's Sly? Now, he's the reason. And then they also have a singer from the 1960s who's performing as well.
Oh, Tommy James.
Tommy
Yeah,
James
that's
from Tommy
right.
James and the Shondells. Yeah.
So, now, my thought is, the first one they did, Levon Helm, you had Mountain, you had, all those Canned Heat, all those bands that really made that thing possible. And then you kind of come back 2 years later and you have, I think, to me, it's a little bit of a letdown from what you're expecting.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Matt McNeil, for what he said, is saying, for that weekend, we always want to have something on that weekend, no matter what.
And they
we
have
wanted
crafts
to-
fair. They do something special with it as well.
They do pull in a lot more of the community as well, which is nice. But he said that we want to bring in artists who kind of reflect that spirit of Woodstock. Do you think that is possible years down the road, 10 years down the road, to still have those kinds of groups, or to do something different of that ilk?
I think you do have younger generational performers who try to reflect that era. The Dave Matthews and others who, certainly were not around to play Woodstock, but they seem to have that appreciation of what Woodstock meant. And I think you do see it with some of the younger artists, and even see it with some country artists, and that it may be kind of a different genre, but they get it. And I think that's the hook that Bethel Woods has that no place can. You can't manufacture what that concert in '69 meant to the area, and you tie it into the museum, you tie it into the monument, in which every performer always makes a point of going down there.
Yeah.
You see the people with the tie-dyes, and you get that sense this is where it happened. And you just want to be careful that you don't make it too, cheesy, exactly, by doing so. You've got the museum, and you don't need to. It's Bethel Woods. It's where Woodstock was. You don't need to hit anybody over the head with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the shows, one of the best shows I saw there and really I've ever seen was Santana, and one of the last year, great show. One of the other great shows.
I do want to interrupt that. Matt actually told me that Santana was kind of originally they were hoping would play the weekend.
Well,
and
scheduling. And one of the other best shows, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young was just phenomenal show. I'd like to see those acts. I mean, quite honestly, some of the weakest stuff that I saw was the 40th anniversary, some of the reconstituted, Big Brother, some singer trying to beat Janis Joplin. It was pretty lame. But, that really wasn't the point of the whole thing.
The point is the atmosphere.
So I would like to see, I would really like to see more quality acts. We're talking about before that kind of fulfill the legacy and the standards of Woodstock. But it's scheduling.
Yeah.
So
I mean, some of the best shows: Donna Summer, Sting, Tony Bennett. Nothing at all to do with Woodstock, but just really great quality performances that no one's leaving the place going, gee, I wasted my time, I wasted my money. People come, so there's that mix.
You're talking warhorse artists who've been around forever, who know what they're doing, who can really do the amphitheater well.
And that's a tough audience to play in. I mean, this is it's the Catskills crowd, and these are people who have standards, and they're either seen shows in the city or they've gone upstate, and they expect for their money to have that quality. So the idea, if you're going to charge me $75 or $125, whatever it might be for a ticket, I want to get 2 hours plus worth of a quality performance.
But and that goes back to that September 3rd show, the Elton John show. Just and it blows you away. I mean,
he's doing all his number one hits.
I know we're going to wrap this up soon. I have just sort of one final thought.
Yeah.
I'd like to review that show.
No, I really think, personally, given that it's...
He puts it on tape so that we can then go back.
Exactly.
I was already in my mind, I got to go to that show.
So we'll all three review it, and then we'll give our impressions.
Yeah, well, maybe we should have a 3-prong review of this, different parts. We'll talk about that. Real quick, before we go, they still have maybe a couple more announcements to make this season. If there's a big one coming up, give me a name. Who do you think it might be?
I'll give you one that's probably not going to be the big name, but is a hot concert. Is the Glee concert? I mean, that is selling out all around. The show, the number one hits. I'm just saying that.
You love Glee.
Well, I'm a Glee follower, but that's a big one.
Right.
Personally, I'd love to see the James Taylor.
Yeah, I think he's a perfect fit, and that's one of the artists that they really want. And I think he's the right fit.
This reflects our musical taste, Glee. You could review Glee for the rest of your life. Neil Young is on the road solo, I think, and so is reconstituted Buffalo Springfield, which is one old act I'd like to see.
Yeah, sure.
That's
All right, Neil Young by himself, or
Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah, I think just by himself would be a treat.
Yeah, he was there, and he was great. That's
Well, whatever they do, I'll tell you, they're going to have quite a good schedule already. It looks like a really good 2011. Elton John, Fish, Janet Jackson, right off the bat, and then you got a lot of good shows after that. So that is the Bethel Woods 2011 schedule. I'm Timothy Malcolm. This was Barry Lewis, and this was Steve Israel, and we'll be here all summer talking about Bethel Woods at the Times Herald-Record and at 845scene.com. Until next time, have some fun now.